problem with digital media is that you don't really own anything. And if they change that file, bye-bye.
Gaming has always fascinated me because it's something, as an industry, it's 10 times bigger than Hollywood. I mean, if not even more. The amount of money that is spent on gaming, not just by consumers, but on developing video games now is easily rivaling Hollywood or surpassing it. And yet it doesn't quite have the cultural cachet. So we tend to leave it out of these kinds of discussions. But I mean, gaming, it's fair to say the backlash against a lot of this stuff came a lot earlier. I mean, I don't want to relitigate the whole Gamergate saga, but surely that was a sign that perhaps gaming fans were a bit earlier to say, up with this we shall not put.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about gamers is that they are hyper invested in their hobby and their favorite franchises and so on, where on the movie side of things, it's a lot more just general audiences like normies who aren't necessarily that observant about the changes that can take place. But yeah, gamers are not shy about making their voices heard. And yeah, I think that whole Gamergate thing was a very early, backlash against the creep of all of this identity politics stuff into their hobby. And yeah, largely we're still feeling the effects of it today. Like some of the people who are involved in that are still active in the industry. So it was a crazy thing. But yeah, gamers, I think, have generally resisted a lot of that stuff and probably will continue to do so because they are a very vociferous audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if you could give some examples for non-gamers of where you've seen kind of woke culture creep into gaming. I mean, the one I've seen a clip a million times of, is it Dragon Age, where you have a transgender dragon, a non-binary dragon?
I'm non-binary.
What does that mean?
It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
One of the big backlashes was against the Last of Us franchise. So for people who don't know, it's like a sort of survival story-based game where in the first game you play a man living in a post-apocalyptic world that's been overrun by these horrifying like zombies. Most of the world's population is now infected with this, and you have to escort a young girl who's got a resistance to this virus that could potentially be the key to curing it and saving the human race. And you have to form this sort of paternal relationship with her. It's all very well done, very well handled game. Then they did a sequel where the male lead is killed off within the first hour in the most brutal, pathetic way imaginable by a big muscle-bound woman, naturally. And then you take over as the female lead, who was the young girl from the previous game. Now she's a lesbian, of course she is, and she's had a complete personality shift where she's now just an obnoxious, arrogant asshole. And they recontextualize his actions from the previous game to basically turn him into a selfish villain, even though he made some really difficult choices, did the best thing he could in the circumstances. Now he's a villain. I think that was probably one of the worst examples, and the backlash against that game was enormous.
Yeah. And I mean, thinking of The Last of Us, I mean, it's been made into an HBO series, great series until I think the end, until it tries to adapt the part 2 of the franchise. But do you think that we are seeing a lot more video game Hollywood crossovers? Do you think that games are going to be mined for their characters, their stories? Because there have been some, I mean, The Last of Us probably the best example. There have been some great stories told on that medium that a lot of people won't have had access to.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think we're coming to the end of the superhero era in cinema. I mean, it's really dominated cinema for the past 20 years. When we look at it, a lot of big summer blockbusters, it became a money printing machine for a long time. But I think it's run its course now, and generally people are just burned out with it. And I think Hollywood, being the creative wasteland that it is, they're going to look for something else that they can, as you say, strip mine for ideas and pre-established fan bases that they can then exploit for name recognition. And gaming is the next logical choice. As you pointed out, it's a huge industry, absolutely dwarfs Hollywood in terms of the money that could be made from it. And it's got very engaged fans who will be interested in, a movie or a TV show adaptation of their favorite games. So it's the new frontier. It's the new Wild West of Hollywood movie making. And they have been doing it more and more in recent years. You've seen things like the Mario movies, debatable what the quality of them is, but they make a lot of money. They've done the same with Sonic. They've made TV shows out of The Last of Us. They've got a Tomb Raider show coming. We've got a new Resident Evil movie coming in a few months from Zach Kreger. So there's more and more of this stuff, and it's going to keep happening. It's been proven now to make money, and they will strip mine it like they did with comic books.
And you've warned recently that there could be a gaming crash. What form do you think that'll take? And is that, I guess, similar to the way that Hollywood has been? Is gaming falling for similar reasons that Hollywood has?
Partly over here in the West, because I think the Eastern developers in Japan and so on and Korea are largely exempt from that kind of creep of identity politics because they just culturally do not endorse that stuff at all. So they're probably going to be the new replacements. But the problem is a lot of Western gaming studios are suffering from bloat. Their budgets have become insane. Some games are getting into the realms of $300, $400, even $500 million budgets. It's absurd. As much money as you can make from the industry, like that's insane that one game should cost that much to develop. And it's essentially at risk of sinking under its own weight. Because when you're spending that much money on one game and it flops, that could be your studio toast. Like you've lost all your resources on it. And so I think that's where it might be trending. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But as I say, if it does, it'll probably be the collapse of game development, AAA game development over here in the West. Probably the Japanese and Korean studios will be exempt from it, and they will just move in and really replace them. They'll be by far the dominant force within the industry.
One of the problems with gaming now is this move away from physical media. In some ways it can be quite helpful to be able to download a game. You get updates with it. Sometimes you download a game and it's not finished. But also, given the certain cultural trends, I mean, woke may be on the way out, but could always make a resurgence. Should we be worried about the decline of physical media? Are our favorite franchises safe from future meddling? Could they be taken away from us even if we bought them? What's your take on that side of things?
You should absolutely be worried, yeah. The problem with digital media is that you don't really own anything and you don't have a persistent copy of whatever it is that you've got. All you're doing is renting it effectively. You're entering into a license agreement with the company who maintains it, and they can revoke that if they choose, if they go under, if their licensing terms change. And you've seen it with companies like Sony recently, who had something like 500 movies available on the PlayStation Store that people will have bought and paid for, that they can just stream or download whenever they want, and they removed them. So it doesn't matter if you paid for it, you just can't watch it anymore. Bye-bye. So you've lost access to that. And there's the censorship issue where it's not all that difficult to edit out scenes or tweak scenes in movies from, say, previous decades that are now considered culturally insensitive or, whatever you want to say, offensive to modern sensibilities. And they can just go in and change that. And you've got no recourse against it because the only access you have to that movie is the file that they keep on their servers. And if they change that file, then your end product is going to change, regardless of whether you want it or not. And you see it in really stupid ways. Like, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, the movie Splash with Daryl Hannah. There's a scene in that where she's playing a mermaid, right? And there's a scene where she turns and runs away from the camera towards the ocean, and she's naked, so you can see her butt. But they decided that was too offensive, so they made her hair digitally longer to cover it. But it's just this really awkward looking square of hair that's like composited over her butt as she runs, and it looks absurd, but that's the kind of things that they can do. And if you've only got a digital copy of the movie, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. And final question, is there anything that recommend across the media? What should people check out? What's worth seeing and not grumbling about?
Well, as we discussed there, I think Obsession is a really good movie. It's one of my favorite films of the year. So there's probably that. The Backrooms was a lot of fun. I'm cautiously optimistic about the new Resident Evil movie that's coming out in a few months. I like the director. Zach Kreger did a good job with Weapons, so see what he can do with that. So yeah, there's probably the main ones. I think the new Spider-Man movie will probably be good. I don't know if we needed 4 of them at this point, but I think it'll be fun. So there is that as well. But yeah, I think overall it's not been an amazing year for movies, unfortunately.